I found a receipt in an old travel bag when I was sorting through our things in the closet. It was for a weekend cabin rental. 2 nights. 2 guests. Confirmation name: J. Sullivan and guest. My wife's name is Rebecca. Mine is Kevin. And neither of us had ever heard of J. Sullivan. I'm a project manager at a tech startup in Portland. 37 years old. Married for 9 years. Rebecca works remotely as a graphic designer, which means she's home most days while I'm at the office. We had routines, rhythms, the kind that make you feel safe, like you're building something solid together. Every morning, I'd make coffee while she checked her emails. Every evening, we'd cook dinner side by side, trading stories about our day. Weekends were for farmers markets and hiking trails, or sometimes just lazy afternoons on the couch with a movie neither of us had seen before. Or at least, I thought we did. That receipt sat on my desk for 2 days before I did anything with it. I kept telling myself there was an explanation. Maybe it was for a client. Maybe she was planning a surprise anniversary trip and had accidentally left the confirmation somewhere I'd find it. Maybe I was overthinking, letting my imagination run wild over something completely innocent. I'd pick it up, stare at the dates, the name, the total amount. Then I'd set it back down and try to focus on work. But it was always there, nagging at the back of my mind like a splinter I couldn't quite reach. But then I remembered the weekend it was dated for, 3 months ago. She'd told me she was visiting her college roommate in Seattle. Sarah. They'd been friends since freshman year, and Rebecca went to see her maybe twice a year. It was one of those friendships I never questioned because it predated me, and Sarah had always been kind the few times we'd met at weddings or holiday gatherings. Rebecca had been excited about that trip. She'd packed her favorite sweater, the blue one with the oversized collar. She'd kissed me goodbye on Friday morning and promised to text me when she arrived. And she did. She sent photos throughout the weekend. Coffee shops with intricate latte art. Pike Place Market with its famous fish throwers. A sunset over the water, orange and pink bleeding into the horizon. I remembered liking one of those photos on my phone, commenting something like, "Beautiful. Glad you're having fun." Now sitting at my desk with that receipt in my hands, I pulled up those photos again. Something felt off. The lighting. The angles. They looked too perfect, too professional. I screenshot one of the sunset photos and ran it through a reverse image search. It had been posted online 3 months ago by a travel blogger. My stomach dropped. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the screen. The same photo. The exact same photo. Down to the composition, the colors, the clouds in the sky. She hadn't been in Seattle that weekend. That's when everything inside me went cold. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. The kind of attention you pay when you're no longer looking at your life through the comfortable filter of trust, but through the harsh lens of suspicion. It changes everything. Suddenly, every smile seemed calculated. Every "how was your day" felt scripted. Every time she picked up her phone and angled it away from me, my heart would skip a beat. I hated it. I hated feeling this way in my own home, with the person I'd promised to spend my life with. But I couldn't stop. She began mentioning a new friend named Justin. Someone she met through a design forum. They were collaborating on a portfolio project, she said. He was helping her branch into motion graphics, something she'd been wanting to learn for years. It sounded reasonable. Professional. Innocent. Funny how his name started with J. She'd take calls in the other room now. "Oh, it's just Justin. He's explaining some animation software thing." She'd laugh at something he said, that light, genuine laugh I used to think was reserved for me. I noticed she started dressing differently on certain days. Not drastically, but noticeably. A nicer blouse for a video call. Makeup when she'd usually go barefaced while working from home. She'd spray perfume before sitting down at her computer, which she never did before. One evening I casually asked, "So when do I get to meet this Justin guy? Sounds like you two are working on some cool stuff." She barely looked up from her laptop. "Oh, he's super busy. Plus it's all online collaboration anyway. He's not even in Portland. I think he travels a lot for his videography work." "Right," I said. "Makes sense." But it didn't. Because if they'd never met in person, how did they end up at a cabin together? I couldn't sleep that night. I lay there next to Rebecca, watching her chest rise and fall, wondering who she really was. This person I'd shared a bed with for nearly a decade suddenly felt like a stranger. The next morning, after she was deep into her work routine, I called the cabin rental company. I tried to sound casual, cheerful even. "Hi, I'm calling to inquire about booking a cabin. A friend recommended your place, Jay Sullivan. He said he had a great experience a few months back. The woman on the phone was cheerful and efficient. Oh yes, Mr. Sullivan. You and your partner had such a lovely stay last time. We'd be happy to host you again. Same cabin? The fireplace suite is available next month. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. Actually, could you remind me which cabin that was? He mentioned a few details, but I want to make sure I get the right one. She described it enthusiastically. The stone fireplace. The private deck overlooking the forest. The clawfoot tub. She even mentioned how they'd requested late checkout and champagne in the room. Champagne in the room. Rebecca had told me she was sharing a hotel room with her friend Sarah that weekend. Twin beds. Girls' trip. They were going to binge-watch old movies and catch up on years of missed conversations. I thanked the woman and hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat in my car outside my office for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just confirmed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a coincidence. This was intentional, calculated, planned, and I needed to know everything. I hired a private investigator, not because I wanted to, because I needed to know the full picture before I made any decisions. I needed facts, not suspicions. Evidence, not paranoia. His name was Carl. Mid-50s, graying hair, calm demeanor. Ex-military, the kind of guy who'd seen enough of life to not be shocked by anything anymore. We met at a diner on the outskirts of town, somewhere neither Rebecca nor I would ever go. I need to know if my wife is having an affair, I told him. Just saying it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Carl didn't offer sympathy or judgment. He just nodded and pulled out a small notebook. Tell me everything. I did. The receipt. The fake Seattle trip. Justin. The changing behavior. Give me a week, he said. It was the longest week of my life. I went through the motions at home. Made dinner. Watched TV. Asked about her day. She had no idea that every word she said was being measured against what I already knew. Every smile felt like a performance I was watching from the audience, no longer part of the show. Carl called me 7 days later. We need to meet. This time we met at his office, a modest space above a hardware store. He handed me a folder. Justin Sullivan, 34. Freelance videographer. Lives in Beaverton, about 30 minutes from your place. Met your wife at a digital creators meetup downtown 8 months ago. 8 months. They've been to that cabin 3 times, Carl continued, sliding photos across the desk. Different weekends. Each time, she told you she was somewhere else. There were timestamps. Parking lot surveillance showing her car at his apartment complex. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to. Gas station purchases on routes that didn't match the stories she'd told me. There's more, Carl said quietly. He pulled out a few printed pages. Text messages. She has a cloud backup service she probably forgot about. These synced automatically. I didn't want to read them, but I had to. The messages were intimate, affectionate, planning their next meeting, laughing about inside jokes I wasn't part of. She'd sent him photos, not inappropriate ones, but pictures of herself smiling, looking happy in ways I hadn't seen in months. And then I found the one that broke me. I feel terrible lying to him, but Kevin would never understand. He's too rigid, too traditional. This is the only way I can have both. Both. She wanted to keep me and keep him. I wasn't even a choice. I was just convenient. A stable home base while she explored something exciting on the side. Another message from a few weeks ago. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if we could just be together openly. But I can't lose what I have with Kevin. He's my security. You're my happiness. Why can't I have both? Justin's response. Because life doesn't work that way, Becca. Eventually, you'll have to choose. Her reply. I don't want to choose. I don't want to hurt anyone. But she already had. Carl watched me read, his expression unchanged. He'd probably seen this scene play out 100 times before. Different names, different faces, same betrayal. There's one more thing, he said. He's been to your house. Twice. While you were traveling for work. Once in September, once in October. I looked up. In my house? Carl nodded. Your security camera footage shows him arriving both times. Staying several hours. She'd brought him into our home. Into the space we'd built together. The place where we were supposed to be safe. I sat there for a long time, staring at the folder. Carl didn't rush me. Finally, I closed it and stood up. Thank you, I said. How much do I owe you? He told me. I wrote the check. As I reached the door, he said, "For what it's worth, I'm sorry. This part never gets easier." I nodded and left. I sat in my car outside our house for an hour that night, staring at the folder on the passenger seat. The lights were on inside. I could see Rebecca moving past the windows, probably making dinner or tidying up. From the outside, we looked like any other couple. A normal home. A normal life. But normal was a lie. I thought about storming in, throwing the folder on the table, demanding explanations, watching her face crumble as she realized I knew everything. But that's what she'd expect. And somehow, giving her what she expected felt like letting her control the narrative one more time. No, I wanted her to tell me the truth herself, without knowing I already knew. I wanted to see if she was capable of honesty, or if the lies went deeper than I'd imagined. I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to give her the chance to spin a story or cry, or manipulate the narrative the way I suspected she'd been manipulating me for months. I was going to set a trap, and I was going to watch her walk right into it. I went inside. Rebecca was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She turned and smiled when she saw me. "Hey, you're late. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just got caught up with some stuff." "Smells good." We ate dinner. We talked about mundane things. Her latest project. My upcoming presentation at work. The weather. It felt surreal, sitting across from her, knowing what I knew, watching her perform the role of loving wife. Over the next few days, I acted completely normal. Maybe even better than normal. I was attentive, affectionate. I complimented her work. I suggested we watch her favorite show. She seemed relieved, like maybe she'd been worried I was suspicious, and now she could relax. Good. Then on Friday evening, I came home with takeout from her favorite Thai place and a bottle of wine. "Let's have a nice dinner," I said. "Just us. No distractions. No phones. No laptops." She seemed surprised but pleased. "That sounds really nice, actually." We sat at the table. We ate. The food was good. The wine was smooth. We talked about work, about a funny video she'd seen, about whether we should repaint the living room. Normal. Comfortable. Safe. Then, as I poured her a second glass of wine, I said, "I've been thinking, we should take a trip. Just the two of us. It's been a while since we did something spontaneous. Maybe rent a cabin somewhere. Disconnect for a weekend. No work, no distractions. Just us." I watched her carefully. Her face flickered. Just for a second. A micro-expression. Surprise. Maybe fear. Then she smoothed it over with a smile. "That sounds nice," she said carefully. "Where were you thinking?" "I don't know. Maybe somewhere quiet. Mountains. Forest. Somewhere you've been before, maybe. Somewhere you know is good." She took a sip of wine. "I haven't really done the cabin thing much." "Really?" I leaned back in my chair, keeping my tone light. "That's funny. Because I found a receipt." The air between us turned to ice. She set down her glass slowly. "Kevin. J. Sullivan," I said quietly. "And guessed." All the color drained from her face. "I can explain." "No." I stood up calmly and walked to the counter where I'd hidden the folder. I placed it in front of her. "You can't. Because I already know everything." Her hands trembled as she opened it. I watched her face as she flipped through the photos, the timeline, the messages. She looked up at me, tears already streaming down her face. "How long have you known?" "Long enough." "Kevin, please. Let me. Tell me the truth." I finished for her. "You had months to do that. You chose not to. You chose him. Multiple times. For 8 months. I didn't want to hurt you." The words came out barely above a whisper, but they landed like a punch. "You didn't want to lose me," I corrected. "There's a difference. You wanted both. You said so yourself." She looked down at the printed message, her own words staring back at her. "I love you," she said desperately. "I do. I don't know what I was thinking. I made a terrible mistake." "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk," I said. "This was a choice. Over and over again. Every lie. Every fake trip. Every time you brought him into our home." She gasped. "You know about that too?" "I know everything, Rebecca." She reached for my hand across the table. I pulled away. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. "The papers will be served next week. You can stay here until you find a place. I'll stay with my brother." "Kevin, no, please." But I was already walking toward the bedroom to pack a bag. She followed me, sobbing, begging, trying to explain how it started, how she didn't plan it, how it just happened, how she still loved me, how we could go to therapy, how she'd cut off all contact with Justin immediately. I didn't listen. I methodically packed a duffel bag. Clothes. Toiletries. My laptop. The essentials. Kevin, please just talk to me. We can fix this. We can work through this. There's nothing to work through, I said, zipping the bag. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. It was a mistake. People make mistakes. I stopped at the bedroom door and looked at her. Really looked at her. The woman I'd promised forever to. The person I thought I'd grow old with. Here's what I realized, I said quietly. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice. A series of choices. Every single day. And you chose someone else. Not once. Not twice. But over and over again. For 8 months. That's not a mistake. That's a decision. Her face crumpled. I'm so sorry. I know you are. You're sorry you got caught. I left that night. My brother, Daniel, didn't ask many questions when I showed up at his apartment with a duffel bag and a numb expression. He just made up the couch, handed me a beer, and said, "You can stay as long as you need." The next few days were a blur. I contacted a lawyer. Filed the paperwork. Started the process of untangling a life we'd built together. Rebecca called constantly. Texted. Emailed. I blocked her number after the first 50 messages. She showed up at Daniel's apartment twice. The first time, I refused to come to the door. Daniel handled it, told her I wasn't ready to talk. The second time, she stood outside for 20 minutes, crying, begging me to at least let her explain in person. I watched from the window, feeling nothing. She reached out to my mother, which was a miscalculation. My mom has never tolerated dishonesty. She listened to Rebecca's side of the story, then told her calmly, "You broke his trust. That's not something you can apologize your way out of." Rebecca even contacted old friends of ours, trying to get them to convince me to give her another chance. Some of them called me. Most of them didn't know what to say. "I can't believe she did this," my friend Tyler said. "You guys seem so solid." "Yeah," I said. "So did I." 2 weeks after I moved out, I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Kevin?" A man's voice. Unfamiliar. "Who's this?" "Justin. Justin Sullivan." "Hi. I need to talk to you." I almost hung up. But something stopped me. Curiosity, maybe. Or a need for closure I didn't know I had. "Talk," I said. "Not over the phone. Can we meet? Please. I know you have no reason to trust me, but there are things you need to know." We met at a coffee shop on the west side of town, far from anywhere Rebecca or I frequented. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in the corner, looking like he hadn't slept in days. He stood when he saw me. "Kevin, thank you for coming." I didn't shake his hand. I just sat down across from him. He looked awful. Exhausted. Guilty. Dark circles under his eyes, hair unkempt, like he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. "She told me you guys were separated," he said without preamble. "That you'd been living apart for over a year. That the divorce was already in motion, and you were just waiting for the paperwork to finalize." I stared at him. "I swear to God, I didn't know," he continued. "She showed me texts that she said were from her lawyer. Photos of an apartment she claimed she'd moved into. She told me you'd both moved on, but were staying civil for financial reasons. And you believed her?" "Yes." He looked down at his coffee cup. "Because I wanted to. Because she was incredible. Smart, talented, beautiful. And I thought I'd found someone who was actually available. Someone I could build something real with." "When did you find out the truth?" "The day you left her." He met my eyes. "She called me hysterical. Told me everything. Said you'd found out about us and served her divorce papers. That's when I realized she'd been lying to me the entire time. That you had no idea. That you weren't separated. That I'd been the other man in a marriage I didn't even know existed." We sat in silence for a moment. "She's been calling me nonstop since then," he said. "Begging me to be with her. Saying now we can finally be together for real. That we don't have to hide anymore. That this is what we wanted." "And?" I asked. He looked down at his hands. "I told her I can't be with someone who lies like that. To anyone. What she did to you, she could just as easily do to me. How could I ever trust her?" I nodded slowly. There was a certain justice in that. "I'm sorry, man," he said, and his voice cracked slightly. "I know that doesn't fix anything. I know it doesn't undo the damage. But I am. If I'd known, I never would have." "I believe you," I said. He looked up, surprised. "I believe you didn't know," I continued. "Because she's good at this. She's really good at making people believe exactly what she wants them to believe. That's not your fault. But I should have questioned things. There were red flags. Times she couldn't meet up. Weekends she was suddenly busy. She always had explanations, but she had explanations for me too, I said. For 8 months. We sat there, two men who'd both been deceived by the same person, processing the wreckage she'd left behind. Finally, Justin said, "Are you going to be okay?" "Eventually," I said. "Are you?" "I don't know. It's strange. I lost something I thought was real, but it never existed in the first place. How do you grieve something that was a lie from the beginning?" I didn't have an answer for that. We parted ways that afternoon. He picked up the check, a small gesture that felt important somehow. As we walked to our cars, he turned to me one last time. "For what it's worth, she lost someone real when she lost you." I didn't respond. There wasn't anything to say. We never spoke again. Rebecca's attempts to reach me continued for another month, then gradually faded. The divorce was finalized 4 months after I moved out. I didn't ask for anything except a clean split. She kept the house. I didn't want it anymore, couldn't imagine living in those rooms knowing what had happened there. I took my half of the savings and started over. My lawyer said I could have fought for more, given the circumstances. But I just wanted it to be over. I wanted to close this chapter and move on with my life. It's been a year now since that dinner where I laid the folder on the table. I'm in a new apartment in Northwest Portland. Smaller than the house, but it's mine. Completely mine. No ghosts. No memories of lies. Just clean slate walls and possibility. Some nights are hard. Some days I still catch myself thinking about her. Not the her I discovered, but the her I thought I knew. The woman I'd wake up next to. The person I'd imagined growing old with. That version of Rebecca didn't exist, but grief doesn't always listen to logic. I've started seeing a therapist, Dr. Martinez. She specializes in betrayal trauma, which I didn't even know was a thing until I started researching how to process what happened. Trust isn't just broken, she told me in one of our early sessions. It's shattered, and rebuilding it, even with other people, even with yourself, takes time. She was right. I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Joined a hiking group. Started taking photography classes, something I'd always wanted to do, but never made time for. Work has been good. They promoted me to senior project manager 3 months ago. New responsibilities, new challenges. It helps to have something to focus on. Daniel and I are closer than we've been in years. He's been my anchor through all of this, never judging, never pushing, just being there. Last month, I went on my first date since the divorce. Her name was Lisa. We met through the hiking group. She's a nurse, funny and kind, with an easy laugh that makes everyone around her smile. It didn't go anywhere romantic, but we're friends now. And that feels like progress. Some nights I still lie awake and wonder where it went wrong. What I missed. What I could have done differently. But Dr. Martinez keeps reminding me. This wasn't about you. This was about her choices. Her character. Her inability to communicate and be honest about what she wanted. I'm starting to believe that. I don't regret leaving. Not for a second. Because I learned something important through all of this. You can love someone with everything you have and still not be enough for them. And that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their choices. Some people will take your trust and treasure it. Others will take it and break it. The key is knowing the difference, setting boundaries, and walking away when someone shows you they don't deserve what you're offering. I'm rebuilding. Slowly. Carefully. I'm learning to trust again, starting with trusting myself. Trusting my instincts. Trusting that I deserve honesty and loyalty and partnership. Last week, I found myself laughing, really laughing, at something ridiculous Tyler said during game night. And I realized it was the first time in over a year that joy felt natural instead of forced. I'm not completely healed. Maybe I never will be, not entirely. There will always be a scar where that trust used to be. But I'm okay with that. Scars are proof that we survived something that tried to break us. And I survived. I'm still here. Still moving forward. Still choosing myself. For the first time in a long time, that feels like enough. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.